Hi, I'm Kurt Zauer, creator, writer, and CEO of KG Comics. My titles are Spectress and Sabanion, and also the spin-off series Ruxy Vampire. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram. Just look for Kurt Zauer, and you can go to my website at kgcomics.com, and you are watching and listening to Two Geeks Talking.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Zauer. We're joined today by a very talented individual. He's a multi-creative comic person. And I say multi-creative because he has two amazing series that we'll touch on, Ruxy Vampire and, of course, Spectress and Sabanion. We are joined by the ever-talented and fellow Kurt Zauer. How are you doing today?
Good, Kurt. How are you? Good morning.
Good. It's just going to be a bunch of Kurts saying hi to each other back and forth for the next hour. This is great.
That's cool. I'm not used to that, so that works. Yeah, it's new.
We're here to talk about, obviously, your amazing comic series when it comes to Spectress and Sabanion. But for those that don't know anything about yourself as a creative person, tell us who you are and, of course, what you're bringing to Two Geeks Talking today.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. My name's Kurt Zauer. I've been doing comics, been creating comics since about 2016. I've been into comics for quite a while. Very much in high school, I read a lot of X-Men, that kind of thing, Spider-Man and Captain America. Kind of took a break from comics for a while and then came back to it late 2000s. And I decided to write my own. It's been a blast. I've had a lot of fun. I started with a 12-page black and white comic with Sajad Shah. I met him at C2E2. We put that together. And then from there, I've been, just working with different artists. I'm a big fan of supernatural. I'm a big fan of horror. Been getting a bit into, I've done 2 titles so far. I'm 5 books into my main title, Spectress and Sabanion, and I just recently released a spin-off to that series called Ruxy Vampire. Spectress and Sabanion is now in its 5th issue on Kickstarter. It's been doing well. I'm happy to see it grow with every release. It's been really, really fantastic.
Well, it's got to be fun being from a reader and consumer of the comics to now making your own. That must have been an amazing journey in itself, because it's difficult to create comics, not only from a writing perspective, but finding an artist. And I'm sure there was a lot of trials and tribulations you had to go through.
Yes, definitely. I have a legacy. I call it the legacy issue of issue number 1, where I worked with an artist. It came out really well. And, I'm not complaining, but it just wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. So I re-released issue 1 with the artist I've been working with now. His name's Topper Helmers. He's been around for a long time. And now we've just completed our 5th issue together. And he and I get along really well. We've had a great time. So yeah, definitely.
When it comes to the horror and mystery genre, what is the most misunderstood aspect about that genre that people who don't follow it misunderstand?
Well, there's a lot of, I think people, when you say horror, people jump to, slasher and just kind of gore, and that's fine. That can be entertaining in itself. Really, there are so many subgenres. There's alien, there's science fiction horror, there's supernatural horror, which I enjoy the most, which is what I do. The Ring and Hellraiser. I guess Hellraiser kind of skirts that fine line between gore and supernatural. So, there's so many genres. People who are really into horror, they can rattle off probably a dozen different genres. Maybe you're superhero comic book fan or whatever. You've got Constantine, you've got Dead Man. There are already some supernatural horror comics out there, and that's really where I do my best work.
What's the elevator pitch for Spectress and Sabanion? Because I think obviously people should know about it, and the fact that you've written 5 issues and you've created 5 issues, that means you're in it for the long haul, so that's a good thing.
I hope once this one is finished up, issue 6 we'll finish the first story arc. But Spectress and Sabanion, it's a supernatural thriller about the ghost of Cleopatra's top assassin trying to push her way back into the modern world of the living. So she wants to create an identity. She wants to be real again, even though she can't really. She's trying to become an archaeologist. She's trying to find purpose in her unlife, so to speak. And that's Spectress. But she's also bound by an ancient curse to this terrible demon named Sabanion. And the two of them, their fates are basically intertwined. One can't really exist without the other. So as she pushes more into the world of the living, she's got to drag along Sabanion and figure out how to deal with him.
That's got to be an interesting horror buddy cop film, if I ever heard one, or buddy comic film, I should say.
It is. It is. They don't get along. I don't know if they ever will. Yeah, they're very antagonistic towards one another, and that comes out in the story. There's a huge backstory there, and I draw that out over the series. A little more information in every book, and I hope that draws people in and makes them interested in the story.
I'm sure the research side of things must have been interesting, because I love the Egyptian tales. I remember growing up, you're really not a fan of Egypt or anything like that if you haven't seen Indiana Jones, and so you get that archaeologist bug, when you're young. And
yeah, definitely. I have to say the old Brendan Fraser movie is The Mummy is definitely one of my favorites. But yeah, I've always loved ancient Egypt, the mythology and the art. Even the history is really cool. So yeah, I wanted to have a hero from that time, but not necessarily, not like the Eternal Warrior. So instead, I made her a ghost that has lived for centuries, and now she's ready to execute her plan, try to become a real person again.
I'm not going to ask for spoilers. Obviously, you want people to buy the book, so I won't dive into that aspect. But you're taking a historical figure character you've created, and you're bringing them into the modern world. I mean, the advance of technology from a couple thousand years must have been a shock. I mean, it's kind of interesting to blend history with the modern day. Like, how did you come about that concept and those themes?
Well, she's very much existed kind of on the fringes of society, so she gets little pieces of modern life here and there, and she's a ghost, so she can possess people, and that's really how she interacts with the world of the living. And now she's learned to make herself look solid. She's learned to change the way light hits her spirit form, so she can look solid. She can change the way she looks, and she's also learned to move things in space. With those new skills, she feels she's ready to rejoin the world of the living. Whether she in fact is or not is a different story. She's relentless, she's ambitious, she's focused. So maybe some things happen in the wake, some terrible things happen in the wake of her plan. She still has yet to realize. So, yeah.
Butterfly effect is maybe in full effect of her coming in.
Exactly. Especially when you have a big volcanic demon that you're trying to put in some place where you think he'll be safe and not cause any trouble. Yeah, that's where the story gets more interesting.
Just looking at some of your images here from the lower third and some of the comic pages you provided here, I love the style. I love the artwork. It has that dark, gritty feel to it, but it's still colorful enough that you can really get a sense of, some clandestine organization. How did you find your artist, and what drew you to his art style?
It's funny. It's his name's Topper Helmers. He's worked for Disney. He's worked for DC. He currently does like theme park design. So he's got quite an eclectic background, and he's just a super guy too. Met him at a show. He's a little older. The funny thing is he's not very tech savvy. I do IT full time, and we were at a show and he needed help with a tablet or something. So I was like, hey, yeah, here, I can get that set up for you. From there, we just started talking, and he had some great pages for sale. Just so happened that I was looking for a new artist. I wanted to kind of restart the series and start with some new art. So he's like, yeah, man, let's do it. And he's just really cool guy, real laid back and easygoing and very easy to work with. He'll take the script, he'll make adjustments, and they all make sense. He likes bigger, bolder panels. So I try to keep the panel count down per page. So yeah, he likes the big splash stuff. And then he met our colorist, Wesley Wong, who's another fantastic guy. He did the colors for the Wonder Woman Historia series. So yeah, I was lucky to land him as well. Yeah, it was really just kind of a confluence of events, and we just ran into each other, and it worked. It clicked.
It sounded like the comic gods of fate just guided you towards your right path there.
That could be. I hope so. I hope that's the case. I hope the comic gods are still looking out for me.
The fact that you've done 5 issues, the fact that you have a spin-off, the fact that you're so invested in these characters, and with an amazing art team and colorist that you obviously have a great plan for this series because you think there's value in the story and the characters. So what was your plan going forward, coming back into comics after being a reader?
Honestly, I have to tip my hat to some friends of mine. I'm also a gamer, a role-playing gamer. And we played some great games, D&D. Over the past years or so, probably, I don't know, 10 years, we started playing Mutants and Masterminds, a superhero game. It was just fun. And we created these characters and we had fun. And some of the guys were kind of prodding me to bring it to life in a comic book. So I have to tip my hat to them as well and for the encouragement and the support. I just putting together stories. I've always loved stories, and I think the comics medium is just that much away from making a movie, to be honest. So that's what it feels like anyway.
I mean, worst case scenario, you could go into motion graphics with your comic and do that. That's still a thing, I believe. And there was a lot of popular comics I think the mid 2000s that actually were doing motion comics like for Marvel and DC. So if you need another digital avenue for your comic series, motion graphics, let's get it going.
Oh yeah, that could be cool. Yeah, definitely.
I'm not just an interviewer. I give ideas as well. So
yeah, motion comics. I have not. I will check that out.
yeah, it's you're playing with layers is really what you're doing. So your characters are sliding in, your text is sliding into your bubbles, word bubbles are sliding in. So everything is a separate layer, and it's just a matter of just giving yourself more depth. So add in a shadow on a character or whatever, and now it's like panel by panel, and it's just you could do the sliding motion following your panel scheme as well.
Oh, and then you add some sound effects and some stuff like that. Oh, very cool. Okay. That's my next project. Oh, I've got so much on my plate already.
When you get your final series for Spectress and Sabanion together, make it one complete motion capture movie and then release it as a digital download for say $20 or whatever.
Yeah. That would be a great, when I release the trade, that could be a great bonus. Yeah, definitely.
Talk about your Ruxy Vampire offshoot from this, and how is the character intertwined with Spectress and Sabanion, if that doesn't spoil anything, and why the offshoot series?
I wanted to do something a little different. I mean, Spectress and Sabanion is definitely kind of supernatural horror, and Ruxy Vampire is a little more fun. It's a little lighter, sexier, maybe, I guess you could say. Do offer some risque cover options, and there's a little bit of spicy in there. And for me, I've always loved the gangster movies too, like the old Miller's Crossing. And I should tell you what it is first. Ruxy Vampire is in the same universe, but at a different time. It's set during Prohibition era in Chicago. This vampiress, she's the granddaughter of Dracula, Vlad Dracula. Her real name is Ruxandra Tepesh. Over the course of the first issue, she shortens it to Ruxy. A vampire, kind of a different breed of vampire. I get to play around with the vampire myth a little bit. She wakes up in a gangster's Chicago apartment during a mob hit that kind of wakes her up after a long sleep, wakes up her and her brother. They find themselves, no idea how they got there. Where are we? Eventually they figure out they're in America. So it's a bit bizarre. It's my chance to do something a little more fun, a little lighter. There's still some violence. I still like gritty stuff. I don't think I could ever really get away from that. It's fun. It's different. I use a whole different art team. Mog Park is the interior artist. Now she's done a number of covers for Spectress and Sabanion. So we talked about her doing interior art for this book. Yeah, issue 1 is complete. And it launched successfully on Kickstarter, and I've moved it over to Indiegogo as well, trying to get some additional traction there. So yeah,
I've seen Mog's work around the social media sites, and just an amazing job with everything that's done. Like, blows my mind.
Yeah, she's great. She's great to work with. She's been doing amazing covers she's done like these tarot card theme covers for Spectress and Sabanion, and they're amazing. We're doing like a whole set of Mog Park releases for the Spectress 5. Immediately after that, we're going to get started on Ruxy Vampire number 2. So yeah, it's going to be fun. Lots of irons in the fire.
Well, try not to burn yourself out. I mean, Kickstarter campaigns and Indiegogo campaigns are second jobs in itself there. So, how are you trying to get the word out besides shows like this? Do you have a marketing plan? Is there something you're trying differently that maybe you've seen other campaigns do that you think will hit with your audience?
I do some ads on Instagram and on Facebook and things like that. So I have a pretty big email list as well. I've built a pretty decent following. I hit convention circuit as often as I can. Yeah, like you say, Kickstarter is like a second job at the time, and it keeps me busy. Definitely. There's a lot going on. But I enjoy it. It's just like a second job, but it's also a lot of fun.
Also tough because you're at the point where you're almost trying to not get cease and desist letters from friends and family.
Yeah, I lean on them. Yes. Yeah. You do when you're a creator, you're trying to make things happen. Yeah, you got to lean on people a little bit. And as far as family goes, I've eased off on them a little bit, but I've got some great friends and they back every launch I do, and I don't even have to ask them. But they've been great guys and they're very supportive. So yeah.
So what are you doing for perks for the Spectress and Sabanion campaign? I'm sure digital and physical copies, but anything unique that you want to bring to the masses?
We're going to have mini prints. We're going to have stickers. We do have the Mog Park run on covers. So she's going to have her tarot card covers available. We'll have some tarot card, metallic tarot card art that she's done. She's done a number of tarot cards beyond just the covers. She's done the Star and some other of the major arcana. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's done a number of those, and those will be stretch goals as well. Yeah.
It's been a while since I've been to C2E2. I was there for the first 4 comic conventions when they first started. I got to go back. It's been a while.
It is a great show. I've done 2 of them. I wasn't able to get into this year's show, but I'll be there. Yeah, I love it. It's a great show. Mog Park will be there. So I'm going to definitely make sure she has some flyers for our launch. Yeah.
Okay, now I have to ask this question. Are you a Cubs or White Sox fan?
Ooh, I have to go with the Cubs. I'm originally from Wisconsin, so
Okay.
kind of a Brewer fan,
Yeah.
but I'd have to say I go with the Cubs. I was thrilled when they won back. I think it was 2016. They finally got that World Series under their belt. Good for them.
These characters, obviously, you fleshed them out enough to write 6 issues here. Is there going to be other spin-offs? Are you looking at just stopping at 6? What is your game plan for Spectress and Sabanion?
Probably I'll run issue 6, and from there release like a trade and a hardcover. From there, really, the sky's the limit. If people keep buying, I can certainly keep writing. I probably each story arc will be based on a villain. She'll face a different villain in every new story arc. So the after effects and the consequences of what she's done will kind of haunt her, no pun intended, for quite a while. So she's unleashed a few things, woken a few things up. She certainly right now isn't a hero, but she will definitely grow into that in subsequent story arcs. So yeah, I can keep going. I probably have enough ideas and material for another 3 or 4 story arcs. So, and Ruxy is still a little fly by night. Probably have about 3 issues of material for her, and we'll see. There's plenty of Prohibition era. There's gang wars. There's just bizarre things, coming up on World War II at that time period. So there's plenty of weirdness to be mined there.
You could always do the classic fast forward in time as well with the vampire. So it's not like you have to be stuck to the decades as they come by. You have some great flexibility with that character.
Definitely, there's definitely a chance we'll do a Spectress Sabanion Ruxy together. Would be a lot of fun, I think.
So what makes a good villain in your opinion for your series?
Ooh, good villains. Good villains always have great backstories, I think. There's in Spectress and Sabanion, there's a snake preacher, kind of a disgraced snake preacher that they ran into in issue 1 and 2. He'll be back in the future. An evil owl spirit. I mean, I don't know what makes a great villain other than what makes a great villain, I guess, is what made a great villain is that backstory, that tragic thing that happened in the past that, justifies the horrible things they do. Whenever you run into somebody that's maybe you consider them evil or just not a great person, there's always something there. There's always something you can find. There's always a reason, something that shaped that person. And each of my villains has has a pretty intricate backstory. I think is interesting. I hope my readers will think is interesting. But yeah, always the past is what makes your great villains.
They're not evil, they're just misunderstood.
Exactly, exactly. I do have one guy. He's kind of, maybe it's a bit cliche, but he's just nasty. He does have kind of a reason, but he's just a terrible person. And there are those people out there too, just the bad seed type. So
Sometimes you just need that just to either push a plot forward, or just need to kind of just waste an evil character for the sake of wasting an evil character.
right, right.
What was an early experience where you learned that language had power?
Ooh, I was an English major in school, so I've always enjoyed stories in grade school. It's funny. I went to Christian grade school, right? My parents sent me to a private school, and I always did really well in religion class. So mom was always telling me, "Well, maybe you want to be a pastor," and I was like, "No." It was just the stories. It took me a while to realize that. It's so funny. The Bible has a lot of great stories in the Old Testament. I think very early on, I learned that stories and language was powerful, and it was really what drew me in. Although it took some time for me to realize that, and when I was in college, I tried a number of different things and none of them stuck. And then I just said, you know what, screw it. I love stories, so I'm going to be an English major. And that's what I went through. And so I do IT now, and that pays the bills. But I love stories. I love to write.
Well, being an English major and being in an IT, I was in IT for 20 years, so I completely understand what I'm sure there are some stories, and especially with your English major background, you can craft some thinly veiled emails and words of discouragement to the masses.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, like I say, it pays the bills. I'd love to do comics full time, but it's not quite there yet. We'll see. Maybe someday.
Eventually you'll get that big booth that's 40 square meters or whatever it is, just get the masses lining up for you and your amazing teams.
I hope so. I really do.
Everyone usually asks, what's the wisest piece of advice, or what's the most BS piece of advice that you've ever received? But what is the second wisest piece of advice that you've received that has stuck with you in your various careers?
Oh, wow. Boy, that's a good question. Probably, do what you love. Always have a creative outlet. I find is what helps with my sanity, and it's what makes me happy. To be honest, you got to do something that you love. You gotta find that little niche of happiness. Maybe that's not what you do for a career. Find that thing that makes you happy, and make it happen. You'll find your fulfillment and run with it. Maybe it eats up a lot of your time. Maybe you don't get much sleep, but it'll take you to a better place rather than working and existing. Got to have your hobbies. You got to have the things that you really love.
By the way, what's your favorite pizza in Chicago?
Ooh, there's a place called Armand's that does really good pizza. Some of the I can't get into the the thick the real heavy stuff. I like it. I like a good thin crust, and there's a place called Armand's that does really amazing. Yeah.
Everyone has one person that inspired them on their path to where they are today. Who was that for you?
Oh boy, I'd have to say it'd be my dad. When I was growing up, he had the most positive attitude. He felt like the world was his. He worked hard. He had 4 kids, but he was always just a go-getter and positive and fun, and just worked hard and was focused. And yeah, so my dad, he's passed on now. He was thrilled when I told him I was writing comic books. I sometimes, you never know with your family, hey, I'm going to write comic books, but no, he thought that was the coolest thing. So yeah, it's got to be Dad.
From a professional standpoint, you are a successful comic creator because you have created comics and you have many campaigns and you've worked with so many amazing, talented people making your dream a reality so successfully. So professionally, you're a successful person. Do you consider yourself personally successful?
I do. There's always, uh, there's always a ton of self-doubt, you know. I'm not going to say I'm top notch. I'm not going to say I'm the best ever, you know. There's always that nagging voice in the back of your head that's telling you, well, you know, you should be bigger. You're not pushing hard enough. You're not good enough. Even just you saying that I've had these successful campaigns and issues, you know, that it's a pleasant reminder that I am doing this and it's going well, because there are certainly the voices in the back of my head that tell me why it's a bit expensive. You know, all I do is write. I don't do any art or anything like that. So that can add up over time, art costs and that kind of thing. But yeah, no, I'm doing well. I want to do better. I always want to improve. I think every issue I write is a little better than the last one. You know, sometimes I feel I want to redo issue one. I want to, maybe for the trade, I'll probably get it relettered, rescripted. We'll see. But yeah, it's been satisfying so far. There's always that voice that tells me you shouldn't be doing this, but you know, maybe that's helpful too. Maybe that spurs me on to try to do better, take a second look at things, and you know, just make it as do the best I can.
We got to remember our small victories because we're so locked into our own bubble and our own creativity that we don't realize what we've accomplished. You know, you're going to look back on this in 5 years time, maybe 2 years time, and say, wow, I've done all of this and this is incredible. Oh, now I have to do this again, or I have to do another issue, or I have to do another series. Like, it's progress in life and in our creativity.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's hard not to listen to that voice in the back of your head sometimes, but you know, just uh, you know, keep pushing that to the back and keep moving forward. And it's gone well so far. And I, you know, fingers crossed that people still love it and they're still interested. So yeah, definitely.
The reverse of success is failure. How do you deal with your failures?
Ooh, um, I learn mostly the hard way. Um, yeah, sometimes you do things that are maybe not the best. Maybe they're financially not the smartest thing you've done. I think I work well with people. I don't alienate people. But yeah, sometimes I've done things that have been a little costly, and like I said, you learn from that. That's all part of the experience. You know, with Ruxy, I probably did too many covers, and uh, and that was expensive when it came down to printing. So, not going to do that again. I mean, it covers people. You know, people say what you want about covers. Oh, that it's ridiculous. It's too many. But I don't know. For me, they're like it's like crack. I mean, it's so easy to get so many covers because you know there's so many great artists out there. You know, every new cover is just something gorgeous and interesting and fun. So it's very easy to talk to different artists and they'll do something for you and it looks great and then it starts to pile up so yeah, maybe I need to rein in those covers a little bit. That's probably the biggest one.
If you get as many covers as there are letters in the alphabet for a campaign, I think you've gone a little too far.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Pushed a little too hard on that last one. We'll fix it in the future, definitely.
If you get up to the letter K in terms of numbers of covers for a campaign, that's still too much.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's a problem.
I can stop anytime I want. Really, it's perfectly fine. Yeah, it's great.
You see you know, Brian Polito and some of the big ones that they just got scads of covers, you know, but he's doing consistently six-figure Kickstarters, so he can do as many covers as he wants, you know.
The younger generation is looking at your work and they're becoming inspired to be creative in their own way, whether it's as a comic writer or creative person in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you've inspired them based on Spectress and Sabanion or Ruxy Vampire. How can they inspire the generation that follows them?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I guess, you know, there's always influences, there's always stories that have inspired you. look for that inspiration, look for the things that you enjoy the most that really inspire and motivate you, and try to do the same and give it a tweak, give it your twist, you give it the flavor that comes from your experiences and your personality and your backstory, so to speak. So look for the things that inspire you and try to do that, but give it your own personal twist. And hopefully that will be the next generation's thing that, they reach out and latch on to and become inspired by, and then they give it a tweak, and then we continue to have great stories.
If your life was a comic book, what would its title be? And what would its soundtrack be?
Oh no. What would its title be? I don't know, Stumbling Along, maybe? Something like that. Going with the flow, I guess. Something like that. Stumbling along, tripping through life. I don't know. That is a really tough question, or just busy, or no sleep, something like that. But the soundtrack, what would my soundtrack be? Probably, I don't know, Jane's Addiction, maybe something bizarre and a little strange and, hopefully a little outside the box. We'll see.
Or Karen, quit putting your password underneath the keyboard.
Yes, I definitely do comics to try to get away from that. It's but I do find people that, in the IT community, they're a bunch of geeky people themselves. So I get a lot of support from them too. So that's always nice.
Well, Kurt, I do hate to say it, but that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. You survived. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, definitely. Thank you for having me, Kurt. I appreciate your time, and this was great. You're really good at this. This was enjoyable. I had a good time.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Before I let you go, though, where can we find you? How can we support you? Of course, where is these amazing series, I should say, because you have more than one, and anything else you'd like to promote?
You can find my website. It's called KG Comics, CAGEY. comics.com. You can find me just put my name into Instagram or Facebook are the two platforms where I'm most active. And you can also put my name into Kickstarter. You'll find my active campaigns. Yeah, I hit up Indiegogo from time to time after a Kickstarter is launched. So you can still find Ruxy Vampire on Indiegogo if you're interested in that as well.
Well, like I said, that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. You could, of course, find this interview and 1,200 plus others on our website, tgtmedia.com or twogeekstalking.com. That's TWO. But the website is basically being completely nuked and rebuilt from the ground up because it's been so long. So all of our content is on YouTube, youtube.com/TGTmedia. The podcast is back. You can get that at twogeekstalking.podbean.com or just search Two Geeks Talking wherever you get your podcasts. And as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to help bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking.